Welcome, Michael. And the folks have had a chance to read your bio and where you come from. All I want you to know is, and I was telling Vagar this, that you're responsible for close to 7,000 views on LinkedIn that we put up there, and 3,000 tweet impressions of our tweet announcing that you were speaking. So you must have a real fan club out there.
Decent network. I get to talk to a lot of people, a lot of surface level conversation.
Okay. Without any further ado, this is Michael Graffin, our Senior Associate AD for advancement and lots of other things too.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Riordan. I know a few of you are already on here. A lot of great people doing a lot of good things for FAU. Awesome to be here. Awesome to be a part of this. I sat in your guys' shoes a decade ago and know what you're going through. I want to share a little bit of my path, kind of where we got to tonight, talk about what I do at FAU, and kind of talk about how we're handling everything under these COVID times, and kind of make it open dialogue. At any point you have a question, just stop me. I'm happy to answer whatever question you might have, or insight, or anything you guys want to talk about. Here to be a resource, and moving forward from this conversation, always feel free to reach out. I'll get back to you. Hopefully within I try to be 24 hours to 48 hours with most people, so no matter what. So I just kind of introduce myself, Michael Graffin. I grew up in Bowling Green, Ohio. Grew up a coach's son, learned how to be a little gritty from the beginning. Taught me how to be enough. Nothing was ever enough. Work out for an hour and a half. Somebody worked out for an hour 45 or 2 hours, so I was already behind. So he made me work harder. Went to played 3 sports growing up: football, basketball, baseball. Got into love the games, love sports. So same with you guys. Thought I wanted to coach and teach. Went to undergrad, got my education degree, and coaching minor. Coached for a season, and then kind of got to where I'm at now. I'm going to first talk about what I do at FAU, and then I'll talk about my career path and talk about where you guys are at now too a little bit. At FAU, in this new role, I came into it in April. When my former boss went to become the deputy AD at Missouri, Ryan Alpert, great guy as well. Currently in charge of our development staff of 3 people. I know a few of you have worked on game day for us as well, so it's a little bit extended staff on game day as we only have so many people on staff. But we report to the foundation as well as the athletic department, so we have kind of a 2-prong. So I have to go across campus quite a bit and kind of understand what the foundation is doing. As well, and kind of be in line with their mission just as much as ours, even though probably 95% of my time is spent on athletics, where I have a little bit of stuff that gets pulled off towards President's Gala and different things we do with the entire university. On top of that, I oversee the ticket operations and ticket sales. Very interesting year for that. We've learned a lot on, it's just been crazy to hear your fans and how to adjust, and since March we've refunded tickets for baseball and softball. We've, gone on sale for football. We've tried to do different things. We haven't done a lot of things that we normally do, so it's just been a total adjustment. But then also on top of that, overseeing our major gifts team, trying to bring in money as well for the athletic department, as well as the university. And then along with the title, I'm a member of the exec staff and the senior staff, and as well as our sports supervision. I oversee men's basketball and men's tennis. So the exec staff is kind of a group of 7 of us. We oversee kind of the final decisions that are being made. We help kind of give information to our athletic director so he can make a final decision on things. So just kind of what he needs to know type things. Not everything goes to him that comes to our level. We have another meeting on the senior staff. Russell in your class is also on that. He sneaks in there as well for those meetings to kind of learn what we're doing on a day-to-day, and that's kind of the whole department kind of working on the meat and potatoes, I would say, the senior staff, and anything on the top exec staff just kind of following through some major decisions that need to be made. I wouldn't say it's too much crazier, but it's kind of where it comes down. And then our sports supervision, we just kind of help our athletic director mainstream, so we help our basketball program. So I have our basketball program and our tennis program, and I get a chance to work with both of them. Basically just a liaison to help them navigate through anything. I don't do any coaching. I'm just there as a resource to be helpful to them. If they have a question about how we do this or that, they can call me. So assistant coaches, head coaches, right now basketball is trying to build their schedule out for the rest of the year, so dealing with their contracts and making sure they get passed through the right channels. And this year with all this stuff going on, contractually and legally, we've gone through more stuff than I've ever seen in my life. So it's been a wild year. So that's good. Men's tennis not as much because they're more of a spring sport. So they've kind of been, but watching those kids go through what they did when we lost the season, that's tough too. So it's interesting, but it's been nice because most of my job is done externally with ticket ops and ticket sales and development. I mostly deal with people who want to support our institution. I deal with the money side of trying to bring money in so everybody else can spend it. And then with the sports supervision, to be around the basketball team and the tennis team, it's awesome because it's only, 10 guys and 14 guys. So it's not like giant teams where I don't get to know the guys. I actually get to know the people. So that's the best part about having those sports too. Because if you have baseball or football, some of the sports, there's just so many people, and it's really hard to get to know your student athletes. So I like the smaller teams too. That's kind of nice. But anybody have any questions about my current role? Anything they want to know about what's going on or anything? Floor is open. Don't be afraid.
I just want to credit Michael for being at every tennis game because the athletic department when I was playing college tennis would hardly ever come to the tennis games, and he's always out there supporting the FAU guys. So
it was awesome. Yeah.
It's much appreciated.
And we missed out on 7, 8 home matches, man. We missed out on a lot. We were just getting in the home stretch. Yeah, it's fun getting to know the guys and coaches, obviously, that help out. But yeah, anything you guys want to know about current role? We'll talk about COVID a little bit later, kind of how we're handling things. Nothing for right now.
Hey, Michael, how's it going?
What's going on, man? Good to see you.
How's the family?
What'd you say?
How's the daughter?
The daughter's awesome. 10 months tomorrow. She's growing, becoming a whole animal. I'm trying to get a scholarship already. I'm working a couple coaches, really trying to figure out her best fit. She's a lefty. My dad and mom are here. They got here tonight. They're getting her a hoop this weekend, so get some layups going. In the living room. She's not quite walking, but it could motivate her. But we'll keep it moving. Then I want to talk about my career path. So I was in college as well. Coming out of college, 2008 depression, similar to right now. I think you guys we're going to kind of be walking in the same shoes for some of you guys that don't have jobs. Right now. The depression hit in 2008. I student taught and coached 1 year of college basketball. It was a great experience. It helped me get a little bit of coaching side of it. Recruited 55 kids all over the state of Ohio. We got 8 of them. They ended up winning the league title 4 years later, which was cool. I was a part of something really special. We were ranked 5th in the country. We were 26-5. Went to the Sweet 16. We lost. We were terrible the last 3 minutes of the game. Ahead the whole time. Blew it. But we had a good enough team to win the national championship. But just being a part of that and watching how abruptly that season ended as a coach, these guys that have done it forever, 7 seniors, their career was just over. And I was like, I want to help kids far beyond just the day that they finish playing sports. And our coach has. He's one of my mentors at Capital University where I went to college. Played basketball, baseball there. But he was great. But I wanted to help more than just one team. And it was an amazing experience. I loved it. Not every year you go to the Sweet 16, though. People, that's his best season ever. It was awesome to be a part of it. But they've been in the NCAA tournament plenty of times. So I wanted to get my master's in sport administration. Being in Division III, you just operate. There's no, they give you a budget. That's it. Nothing else. You're not raising a whole lot of money. Some of the programs have a little extra slush fund. So I didn't understand it. Coming from a high school to a Division III college, they give you a budget. And then Division III baseball, actually, when I played baseball, we fundraised at the Columbus Blue Jacket games. We were concession stands. I ran accounting for concession stands. Great times. Let me tell you, counting chicken tender baskets, every single cup that's in the stand, different things that we did. It just taught me that I didn't want college kids to have to do that wherever I worked because, it took a lot of time away from my college experience. And then we worked Ohio State football security. So I worked for CFC and worked a lot of different areas on the field. Actually, the 06 game between number 1 and number 2 Michigan, me and 2 of my best friends on the team walked Troy Smith off the field with 3 cops. It was awesome because we knew we were going to the national championship, and so it was unbelievable. So everybody's on the field, and that was the last game played on grass in the shoe. And a lot of my friends have grass and dirt from that game on their like mantles. I mean, that's a little bit crazy Ohio people for you. But really cool experience. Like it kind of diversified me a little bit, getting a different experience there. College baseball was fun, but I had a basketball coach that really cared about you and a baseball coach that was kind of part-time in it. So it was very challenging. So it just gave me a different heart for wanting to help college athletics. So I went to grad school at Belmont University in Nashville. I looked at what schools would fit what I wanted to do, similar to what you guys are. You guys are in a great place where you're at because you have a place that's very marketable. You have a lot of opportunities. I saw some of the schools like Central Michigan, OU, Valparaiso. They were all in areas where you couldn't do anything at those schools. So, I mean, like you couldn't dabble in every single thing. You couldn't try college or pro or different thing. Here you can do everything, like literally everything. Same as Nashville. Nashville was booming in 08, in 09. It was booming. There was so much to do. So I went down there, didn't know a soul. And I went to Belmont University. One of my best friends moved with me. And another best friend ended up coming and doing the program a year after, and he works in golf now. But went to grad school and just kind of share with you guys. I know that you guys, Dr. Riordan shares with you guys all kinds of things. So what jobs are out there, what opportunities are available, what you're doing. I know some of you guys have full-time jobs or part-time jobs. So I ended up being a teaching assistant. I got most of my college paid for, most of my grad school paid for. I had to pay for like 6 classes out of my own, but I was a TA teaching in the sports science department. So I did that. I taught racquetball, fishing, jog run. It was great. Got a master's paid for teaching classes. But on top of that, I had multiple roles. Just saying, so when Riordan throws you something, or Dr. Riordan throws you something, the opportunities, like if it's a 2-month opportunity, go take it. You never know who's going to get you a job, ever. If it's free, not paid. I took so many different jobs during the 2 years. I just want to share with you guys kind of what I did. It was kind of a need to reflect on it, preparing for this. So I started as a TA, and I worked at a country club down there as a tennis center assistant, kind of ran the tennis center. And then at that same country club, I ended up doing court maintenance as well. I learned how to take care of clay tennis courts on this really nice country club. Did that as well. I worked YMCA memberships at all hours from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., wherever I could fit it. One semester, I was the baseball operations coordinator. I ran all baseball operations for 6 months in the 2010 Belmont baseball season. A lot of good kids came out of that. A couple played minor league, but nothing after that. Great people. I was the associate AD. I was the associate AD's intern pretty much my entire time while I was in grad school, and I ended up getting a job because of that job. I worked the NCAA regional in Nashville for 4 days. Anytime you can jump on like a 4-day thing or a 2-week thing and learn to get experience. I know Russell has different events that we might host at the someday again host events. It's not bad to get some event experience or just put it on your resume. I was a social chair for our program. We get about 45 students to 50 students, and same with a couple online like you guys too. We're afar, but I'd run like stuff socially. We do like little happy hours here and there. We had a lot of fun in that age group in Nashville. I worked stagehands for a lot of concerts. Once I got a job actually as the director or assistant director of athletic operations for the associate AD. I just worked for the associate AD and the AD. They gave me a job. I did stagehands. I built a bunch of stages around Nashville. I did breakdowns, venues. We built venues, tore it back down. While I was in grad school, I worked at Vanderbilt for their marketing department for probably 3 months, and their ticketing office for one-off events here and there. Ran will call. And then I was the ops GA while working for the associate AD. And I ran that program the year after when I was assistant director of ops. So all those jobs that I did, thinking about then, I don't have many regrets in life. I think we kind of get taken wherever we're going to be taken. The only thing I missed out on doing when I was there, I should have done the summer sales program at Vanderbilt and gotten sales and development a little bit earlier. So I ended up going to operations first because I loved being part of operations, being the first one in the gym, last one to leave. And then I got to a point where I could figure out what was best for my skill set. And like I would say in your first year of the program or the second year of the program, the first year is when you kind of want to dabble around and find out what's you. The second year of your program, find out what you want to do. if you can swift through that in 1 year, it's challenging, but get towards your second year or at least your first job leaning you up. And like whenever you take a job, is it going to help you move forward in your career? I know when you're in your first job, you can't be super picky, but if it's a job that can help you get to your next job is always something to look at, but don't focus on that too much. Focus on the job you're in, but think about your career goals and where you want to go, and does this help you get there? And so that's kind of one of those things. All these things, though, benefited me understanding different things now that I incorporate to today's world. So for me, in that operations job after being there, and I was working 4 jobs, so I was still working at the YMCA. I was still doing stagehands to make extra money. I mean, I made like $17,000 in that assistant director of operations job, so I wasn't making much money. So I was trying to figure out different jobs, and I was like, I need something a little bit more stable. And I ended up getting a job. I tried to get my buddy's job at Duke. He was in sales at Duke for IMG, and he went to West Point. And I called him, and we had his fellowship group as well on a side note. I said, I'll move anywhere in the country but the Northeast. And like my buddy calls me 2 days later after I called him about the Duke job. He's like, listen, you need to come to West Point, man. It's awesome up here. So you don't need to be at Duke. And I got to, never done really sales ever. And some of you that know me, my buddy's like, listen, you're a coach's son and you can talk to a wall. He's like, you got this. And so like literally I picked it up, did ticket sales for Army for a year and a half for the Aspire group, which I think is a great starting career. If you're willing to do sales, you can get in and then just kind of go from there. So I think sales is very transferable across all different fields as well as development. I'm a little biased, but I also think it is very transferable to any industry. Because you're going to be selling yourself, you're going to be selling pretty much anything you do. Like when you're in an elevator, the elevator pitch is a sale. So anytime you talk about somebody, you want to be excited about something. And like somebody says, if you do something you love, you're not really working. And I feel that way. I know people say that all the time. It's corny, but it's true. So went up there, did sales. The Aspire group, I was, the second year I was in the Aspire group, I had beat everybody in sales in the country, and our most expensive ticket was $39. I sold a 2,400 person group from across the river that wanted to play their youth football games, their championships in the stadium. And we worked out a deal because we were doing it for lacrosse. We built that out of nothing, like game day experiences, play a game before the college game. And so we did that, but then we did it for the football program. This entire league bought like $42,000 worth of tickets, and they were got to play on a Sunday late in the fall after the season was over. And we have turf. They had turf at West Point, so it's a little easier than having grass in Florida. So I've already brought the idea up here, but I know it's just such a challenge here with the grass, the watering, the maintenance. It's just a whole deal to run out the field for a day would just destroy the field. So we can't necessarily try it here yet. We did it up there and did a huge sale. In the Aspire group, they have great starting jobs. The middle tier job that they have there is tough. They were trying to move me to Minnesota, Kansas, or Arizona State. And I was like, I don't know if I want to stay in sales and be a ticket guy forever. It was very transactional, and I wanted to develop relationships with people, and development kind of allows you to do that. And the same buddy I tried to follow for the Duke job, the same one that was at Duke, he ended up going to Penn, and I took his job when he left. So they promoted me right within at West Point to development. And so I got out of the Aspire group, started working development, figured out how to leverage, our Army-Navy game and really talk to donors. And at West Point at that time in 2014 was they'd lost 12 years in a row to Navy. It had been kind of a laughing stock where they were at. And we were trying to convince Army alumni and fans that, hey, we're doing the right things. We're putting the right things on the bus. This is why we're doing it. We're going to keep winning. We're going to make these things happen. We hired a new coach in 2014, and it was great. The foundation up there let me run. So I got to, FAU, a lot of our fans, 110,000 alumni are here. At West Point, the alumni are all over the world. So it allowed us to travel a little bit to where our games were. So if we played at Air Force, I would go out a week early and visit with donors in Colorado. I would go to DC in the Patriot League and spend the entire time working people that are in defense contractors. And it taught me how to meet a lot of different people in a lot of different regions and how they operate. And it really diversified me really quick. So I got to learn a lot about our country, a lot about our service, a lot about our people, and then how people ticked, especially West Point people, and hey, we're loving it. And so we took the annual fund there from $2.7 million to $8.4 million in my time there. And all it was a lot of hustle and people willing to work. And a lot of those guys that I work with now are very successful across the country. So, I mean, it's a small niche world in college athletics. People know each other everywhere. So, I mean, it's easy to pick up a phone now and to say, hey, how are you guys handling this? I mean, like right now, Conference USA, we're talking more than we ever talked ever because everybody wants to know how we're handling different things, but we've become friends through networking. And so, but like I got buddies, one of my best friends, two of them are at Purdue now, Missouri, and UTSA. They've all were in that group of people, Marquette, that all learned how to raise money there, and they've all gone on to get better jobs and do better things as well. But that West Point connection was strong for us. So after a year and a half in the development role, my same buddy left to go to Penn. But that one that he went to Penn when he left, and he actually tried to recruit me to go to Penn with him, and it helped me get a bump at West Point. So I ended up in another role at West Point. So I had 3 jobs there. And I'd been there, and I'd been offered other jobs, and a couple jobs had closed on me, Ohio State, Notre Dame. There's a reasoning behind why you don't get it sometimes. Notre Dame, I literally had pretty much everything except being a grad from Notre Dame. And a women's basketball player got it. And, since then, it's one of those things that just kind of how it works out. And our AD at the time, who's now the AD at NC State, Boo Corrigan, he was the one that pretty much got me in out there. And it just was kind of interesting towards the end. But 70 of the 77 fundraisers at Notre Dame, which is crazy number, are actually in Notre Dame grads. So it's tough. So it was a blessing in disguise. 2 months later, Brian White calls me. Love Brian. Brian worked at West Point with me he was there about a year. And when I worked with him, he was awesome work for. Let you do your job. He lets you run. He's not going to put his finger on you and make you do stuff. I mean, he'll ask you at certain times to do something and knock it out, but he's not going to tell you how to do your job, and he lets you be you. And that's the best part about working for Brian. And now knowing the athletic director, and I would say when you do get a job or when you're looking for jobs, know who you're working for a little bit too, because they can make your life miserable or they can make it fantastic. So knowing who you work for is important too. And so coming down here to Brian and being a part of that was pretty incredible. And obviously with Brian and some of the experience I had at West Point, like I tell you guys, I know a lot of you guys when you come to South Florida, the ones that are here or wherever you live if you're online, the experiences in college athletics, if you're willing to move, the doors I think are wide open, right? I think if you can see a lot. But there are some great things about staying in a place too. So there's both sides of it. But I've lived in Tennessee now, New York, Ohio, Tennessee, New York, and Florida, and met some incredible people along the way. The journey, like Dr. Riordan said, the network, the West Point network goes on forever. FAU network's getting bigger and bigger each day, and we're really trying to grow that as well and trying to talk to more fans. And I think we just have such a young alumni and a young system that talking to people is the biggest thing that we need to do. We just haven't done it. But some of the stuff at West Point, like I never thought I'd experience because of sports. We played baseball in Fenway, played baseball in Camden, played football in Yankee Stadium. We played football, obviously. We played at Penn State in my time, Ohio State, Stanford. We did a Stanford, for the Stanford trip, we did our pregame tailgate with our donors was on the field for Giants versus Dodgers. The pregame, we tailgated on the field during BP. That was pretty awesome. The Army-Navy game was in Baltimore for 2 years in Philly, so playing in a big-time event like that, being around it, and then being there for when they won for the first time in 14 years was incredible. Watching like 3-star generals, 4-star generals, the CFO of Disney, the CEO of Twitter at the time, they were just a mess. Like grown men crying is amazing. So it's just like one of those things that you see, and just everybody coming together, the camaraderie was really neat. So those are things that if I would have closed my mind out of moving to the Northeast 8 years ago, I never would have experienced in college athletics because I was open to it. I never thought I'd live in Florida, and now like working with some great people here, and we have an awesome team, and it's just been incredible. And I think FAU in the next 10 years could just be on another monster because you're just allowing, like you're seeing Central Florida grow like it is the last 10 years. I think we're just right behind them. It's going to take a little bit of time because of infrastructure and how you build out. But this thing doesn't help, obviously. It doesn't help anybody, COVID. But just totally building it out because we were building, going from Division II to Division I, FCS to FBS. Like that stuff doesn't happen very easily. If you just do it, like there's consequences to how the ramifications just build up. And if you're not built for it, you slowly have to get there. And like that's what we're going through right now is we're slowly building And it's really a unique process because it's kind of like a startup, but it's not quite. It's past the startup phase, but you're really kind of taking it through its phases. So that's the best way I can describe FAU athletics, because I'd love to hire like everybody right now and say, hey, we have jobs for you. There's stuff to do for sure, but how do we pay you? How do we make you, help you do this or help you do that, or what's your role? We'd still be developing that. And we've slowly started to do that, but here and there, but it's kind of been shut down by this. So does anybody have any question about that? And when I was brought to FAU, actually, initially, I was brought to run development, and so I ran the day-to-day operations, even though Ryan Alford oversaw everything. So kind of had the day-to-day operations with the development and another development officer handling major gifts as well, and basically just doing anything that, Ryan and Brian threw my way. So I didn't have sports supervision when I got here. I got like tennis 8 months in. Now I have basketball, that, tickets, sales, so a little bit of everything. Anybody have any questions about the career path or any in their field or their?
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, I've said a lot of the same things that you have when you talk about working for a third party like you did with Aspire, and we had some folks that worked with IMG, Learfield IMG. We had some people that started out with Aspire when they were here before they were dismissed. I've also encouraged people to work for some of the private management companies, stadiums and arenas, SMG, ASM Global, all that, AEG. I think one of the big things, and I don't know if you can speak to this, is that when you get into an organization like that or a private company like that, in case anything happens at that one particular institution, and obviously now it's happened all over, but say if something doesn't go right there, they downsize, they do something, by being part of a third-party company, they can move you someplace else, and you have room to grow anyway. Even if there is no problem, if there's a student that really makes headway in their initial job, there's always that opportunity to get promoted within the company at another property.
Yeah, and I can speak for that. I have a lot of buddies that have had that happen. To be honest, 3 sales consultants that were at FAU all became managers, actually. Brandon Lopez, who now works for the Yankees, I believe, he went to South Florida as their manager from FAU. John Zelenek, he went to Western Michigan and ran their property. And then Ana Claudia Cervantes, she runs Colorado State's property right now. Now, they are going through some downsizing right now, but there are some talks on some other third parties dropping out of the ticketing game again. So it's up and down right now with everything right now because there's no events happening. It really hurts the sponsorship teams. But again, like Dr. Riordan said, if you're good, they're going to find a way to keep you. And just my stuff with all the things that are going on with Kansas and Minnesota. And the crazy thing is Minnesota and Arizona State shut down within 6 months of that happening. Now, Kansas has one of the biggest Aspire operations now still. They were building it then, and then that's when they offered me to move out there and be like a team leader. It wasn't crazy amount of more money, and selling Kansas football wasn't the most appealing thing to me. So I was kind of like, and everybody knows Kansas football is like not great even on here. Les Miles now might turn it around, but I have a buddy that runs ticket operations there now. He was actually at West Point as well, but he loves it there for the basketball piece as well as the football. The football's gotten better since he's been there. But like Dr. Riordan says, I think the third party, the ability to shift you around Learfield is just a monster. If you can get into Learfield, it's not the worst place to be. I mean, Brian White, our AD, did 5 years with Learfield prior, and he actually worked at California, Arkansas. I think that's it. I think he was at Cal Berkeley in Arkansas, and he met his wife at Arkansas. So he started there as well. So, and I started in Aspire, and it was like, to be honest, Aspire, like Bernie Mullen and Bill Fagan, I still have a great relationship with those guys because I was honest with them. I was like, hey guys, I love the opportunity you gave me. You taught me that a ticket starts a relationship with the university. How many people live in Boca Raton that don't come to games, right? That ticket gets them to come to a game, and all of a sudden they have a relationship with the stadium, with the game, the school. So not all people aren't alumni, but that's how you get the locals. But there's different ways, but those guys taught me a lot. I still talk to Bill Fagan a little bit. They're still good connectors. Obviously, we've gone through some things here. We shifted to our in-house here at FAU, and we got rid of the Aspire group only because of how it made sense for us as a department. And we've actually done a great job this year throughout this COVID. We've almost renewed 75% of the money that we had from last year's season tickets. So in the middle of all this, we've still been able to renew quite a bit. Not a lot of new money out there right now, obviously, because we haven't sold single games or groups because we don't know the capacity. And I don't think anybody knows the capacity unless they're making some strange announcement. The Patriots came out with 20%. I saw Illinois came out with 20%. Michigan came out with, we're not going to sell any tickets until we know for sure, and they're going to be single game only, and only if you're a student or a season ticket holder from this past year, you'll have access to tickets. So they're going to make the tickets way expensive and get probably a decent amount of revenue since they only have 30,000 seats instead of 110,000. So to be honest, more than ever, we've probably paid attention as a team to what's going on around the country to try to figure out what's best for us. And everybody's different right now with hotspots like Marshall, Southern Miss, UTEP in our conference aren't even dealing with COVID. They're like, hey, it's gone. And it's like, oh, nice, good for you. But the rest of us are like, hey, this is great. Everybody has a nice office at their house. I think what Dr. Riordan is saying is the opportunity that you get, it's a great foot in the door job. And if you can impress on your campus or impress the team, and I would say make relationships with the regional guy that oversees your place, the different people, ask to meet anybody, talk to people, and talk to them multiple times. People always said networking. And I think that's true, but network with a purpose, network to make a relationship with somebody, not just, randomly email them once a year or twice a year. Follow up with them once a month or every other month. And we get busy, in busy times, once a quarter is probably fine. But have a real relationship with the person. And to be honest, the best network you can build are the people who work with you, and then they go because they know who you are. So that's the biggest thing I would say is once you get to a job, networking within your group, becoming friendly, learning what they do. I love learning from our compliance people or our business office or, different areas that I still don't know a lot about that I like to learn about because I have no idea. Sometimes just what are you talking about? Teach us, learn little things that you can. But the West Point crew, when we were up there, and similar with FAU, you've got a lot of stuff going on here, but we still do some stuff together here. And now obviously we haven't, so that's the only thing I miss is the camaraderie piece of team working together, or going out for after a game, celebrating that, being together. At West Point, all you had was each other. You were 45 minutes from New York City, you weren't close to anything. So Monday through Friday, you just have relationships. So all those people that I worked with, I would say, military comes out every 2 or 3 years up there, and then same with the staff because New York's an expensive state. Coaches would only make it there 2 years, 3 years tops because assistant coaches weren't making anything living in New York. And head coaches there get houses, which is pretty cool. But the camaraderie made such my first 6 years after Belmont. Belmont had a close-knit group too, but West Point, because the 6 years I spent there in that small town of 2,000 people, and each other is all you had, you became really tight-knit because we did bowling, flag football, basketball, everything we played together. So you got to know people really well. But that's the thing. I think networking within that group as you grow, and don't feel like whoever is your supervisor or whatever you're doing, feel free to know who they know. That's the biggest thing. It's hey, I'm looking to do this. Somebody in this field, and then reach out to them. Don't be afraid to do that. As you approach graduation, most of you guys graduating December, the summer, next year. Where is everybody kind of graduating?
Graduating next fall.
Okay. Yeah, plenty of time. Yeah.
Yeah, this is basically the first-year group going into their second year, and then we have a whole bunch of new folks starting in August. We have a pretty good group coming in. It's good that you're talking to them about getting involved in different opportunities.
Yeah.
I know we sent a job description out for the marketing positions, unpaid, and we haven't done the paid yet because we only got 3 responses for the unpaid thing, and that's something that you're gonna get offered to be for a paid position by people seeing that you want to do the unpaid stuff as well and the volunteer. Am I right?
I think the biggest thing 08 and 09 when there wasn't as many paid jobs, just like now, because it's going to be tough to get a lot of paid jobs. There might be paid experiences out there, but doing an unpaid and a paid at the same time is manageable if you can manage your schedule if you're not working. Obviously, I know people work full-time as well. But navigating that is a challenge at times. The marketing team right now, too, the team that they've got, Andrew Barber, Mike Marfoni, and Alex Suzerano, they're awesome. And Alex just came in from UCF where they increased their attendance basketball this season without winning. So like he's been able to find a way to do things there, and I think he's got some innovative ideas as well as Mike and Andrew. And they could be really good this year as well as they grow. We added a social media coordinator, and I think she's going to have some internship positions available. So if you're looking at that route, Elise is awesome as well. There's some neat opportunities that are just in your backyard here. And like I said, I did a lot of different things, but if you did, 15 hours a week here, Hayden Nagel, who we ended up hiring, is a great example. He's from your program. He knew he wanted to work in athletics in some way or form, and he found development to be his niche now. But I mean, he did last semester, he was working for Northwestern Mutual. He did 15 hours in he did Northwestern Mutual, I think 15 hours a week, 15 hours a week for academics, 15 hours a week for us. And he did the Panthers game day crew for, I don't even know what his hours were there, but he did all those jobs and somehow stayed afloat and got it done. And he hired him because he knew he was a hard worker and couldn't let him go. So
plus he went to school.
Huh?
Plus he went to school.
Yeah, plus he went to school. I forgot that part. So it's manageable. You just have to want to do it. When you see kids that have that in them and they got that extra oomph, it's easy to make that hire. And I fought for him. I said, we got to hire this guy. If we let him go, because he was applying for other jobs at Florida State and went to a job fair in Orlando and Tampa. And I said, hey, I don't want to lose him. Let's make him an offer. So when you're good and you find that out, that's just one example right there. But that's kind of what I did to the guys up in Belmont and said, hey, they offered me a job right as I was graduating. But it's one of those things. You just got to find a way to be noticed at the same time without sticking your head way out and being like just too much in it. So you just got to find a way. But like right now in your role right now, you guys all know you want to work somewhere, right? So I would say, use your resources. Use Dr. Riordan. Use this program. Use people that have come from this program. There's some incredible. Ryan Peck from his program is the executive AD at North Texas. Incredible guy. And he would probably stick up for you even more because he's an alumnus. And he'd be like, oh yeah, FAU guy, let's make this program proud. And then our Belmont group has gotten better. There's a group from 13, 14, 15. I was in 11 that have done really well too. There's a group of 8, 9, 10 guys that graduated around me and a couple girls that have done really well. And they're all over the country. And if we can get you and connected with those, say, hey, I want to work for a conference. I know people that work for conferences, and I'd be happy to connect you guys. You can ask them questions, learn about what they do. Hey, how do I get to your role? And right now you can start questioning people about where they got, how'd you get to where you're at, and learn from them, and then figure out how you want to put your plan together. I think that's really important when you're sitting in your shoes right now, is figuring out who I should be talking to, why not. There's a kid from Belmont's program right now that calls me probably every 3 months just to check in. I probably need to check on him. He was supposed to have a wedding last week. So, but he's called me every 3 months. He's going to graduate with next May, but he's been calling me. He's trying to get in at the Middle Tennessee job, so I put a call in for him up there. But just trying to help that out. But for him reaching out, 9 months ago, and he calls me every 2 months just to check in, has helped him, because I'm good enough to make a call because I know who he's worked for, and I know he's done some internships before that. So he's already set himself up for success by doing that. So use your connections and use Dr. Riordan, use the program, use your professors, use everybody you can. You have no idea who's going to call you for a job. Zero. You don't know who's going to help you that one day that says, wow, I didn't know that opportunity was available. But if you work hard, you do your job. I think a lot of people just want to move up. When it happens, it'll happen. Don't force the issue. A lot of people ask, way too early. Hey, you worked for 6 months. Great. That's awesome. We all have to work for 6 months. So you got to put in time before people just hand stuff out, and you really got to bust your butt. I've been lucky to move up in positions, but it happened that people were moving on, or it just kind of worked out where a position opened up. So it's those things happen, but it's timing is everything. And one quote that I heard that I think you guys should definitely keep for a long time, and I heard it 6 years ago: comparison is the thief of joy. I heard it and I love it. People try to compare their career to somebody. Oh, that person's that age, that person's this age. The average age of an athletic director in college athletics is 52. So, like, think about that. I'm 34 years old right now. I'm not in a rush. Like, nobody should be in a rush. Learn as much as you can in every single role. Be like a sponge. When you're a young kid, you just take it all in. A lot of us tune out real quick with, phone, Twitter, TV, everything, the distractions we have. But, when you can be a sponge in each role and learn as much as you can and try to know what you want to do and navigate it, and if you're willing to move and do some different things for your career, you could do a lot. So, especially if you're single, I know if people are single or married, if you don't have any attachments or anything like that, you don't move in a group, it's a lot easier too. But I'm promoting marriage. I love it. I'm married and have a daughter. It's awesome. But each way, it's easier to navigate when you're single. So make your moves early and get your experiences early before you decide to marry or tie down. And you still get into this career and having somebody that understands it too. So they get what you're trying to do. That's just as important once you do cross that bridge. Any other questions at this time about kind of career path? And
Yes, Mike, can you hear me? Oh.
yeah.
Phil, you go for it. I'll ask after.
All right, thank you. So I worked, during my undergrad, I worked at Florida Southern on the athletic communication. Well, I was a game day worker, but I worked alongside with athletic communications. They're a D2 school. I remember early on, kind of got built up as I've been there, which was pretty cool to see. Remember early on, if you were, let's say you're working a lacrosse game, like a women's lacrosse game, we had to have a position up in the press box. What they would do is they would pretty much just observe. And what would happen is, let's say we score a goal. All right, what number was that? That was number 16. All right, who's number 16? All right, it's Jane Doe. Okay, and then all of a sudden it would go over the intercom. Jane Doe scored Florida Southern, and we get tweeted out to people following us, and then it would go on our athletic page, so on and so forth. Changes from that athletic communication from a D2 level to a D1. Also, how important nowadays is that athletic communication, is that exposure to the people like following the team?
Okay. There's a lot there, right? I like that. D2, D3, D1, I don't think it really matters. The sport is a sport is a sport. I'm a D3 guy. I mean, you're still playing basketball. It's still a stat. Volleyball is a dig, is an attack, it's a goal, whatever it is. If you're in communications is very important. I think communications is evolving. I don't think it's as much as a story as it is just like bullet points now. I think people read bullet points better than they read a story. So being able to be flexible in how you tell your story. I think there are times for the story piece, but there are times for different ways to do videos. Waji does a little bit for us right now. He does a lot of the different video. He does a video. He does a story. He does a little bit of everything, but he's telling the story differently each time, and I think that's a cool way to kind of bring it all together. It's not always the same. I think being unique each time, not unique, I would just say mixing it up is more important than the same dry story. You know what I mean? And obviously, like, now with social media the way it is, like, you just have to find a way to communicate. Every school is different. Like, our fan base is actually pretty old for where we're at. Now, if we get more Parkland and Delray involved, we could speak, Instagram and different things. I think Instagram will help with our students and very young alumni. But I also think, like, the Twitter and Facebook game's a little bit different. But being able to communicate on all platforms in communications is big. But different levels, it just depends on who your audience is, Phil. I think it just really depends because, at D3, I think they have 2 people cover like 24 sports in my undergrad. So here we have, I want to say 9 that cover 19. So understanding, where you're at too and what you can give to each team. I think that's a challenge because even our marketing team struggles with that. I mean, Russell can talk to it on facilities. How do you cover all these areas the right way and give them the most time when you're trying to balance all these teams? So that's going to be where you're at. But Florida Southern's a great school, great basketball team. I actually watched them play at PBA this year. There's a guy in Boca. His son goes to Florida Southern. So great people. The really talented team.
They were going to win the championship.
They were loaded.
It was there, yeah.
Yeah, they were loaded. A couple D1 transfers, loaded. So yeah, but I just think level-wise, it's just all. I think there's a little bit more ego at the D1 level. Just because people think they're, I think you got to erase the ego out of stuff. I mean, there's times where we have, hey, look, I've been at the big school. I think being a D3 guy gives me a little bit of a chip, kind of saying, hey, like, yeah, I played D3 sports. I still played 4 years. I still, went through everything. I paid for school, and I got things done. I played my sports, loved it, have camaraderie with my teammates. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's guys that work their butt off and were talented enough to get a scholarship, and that's awesome too. So, I mean, just people just need to understand that D3, D2, D1 thing, like, just depends on what you want. I think everybody has a different niche in life. We're not all fighting for the same job. I think do what you want to do. Don't try to please anybody else. At the end of the day, just answer to yourself. At the end of the day, if you're happy and your family's happy, be happy. You know what I mean? Some people are content making, $35,000, and they're happy doing that for their site. It should be about money. Do it for love, and if you're good enough, I actually have. My wife moved my notebooks, but I actually have 2 notebooks from similar sittings like this, going through these things and talking about Mike Strickland, who's the AD at Belmont, and Mike Hamilton, who is the AD at Tennessee, talking about being yourself and being genuine. People can see right through that when you're not. So if you're in it for the wrong reasons, people can see that over time. It doesn't take very long. You can spend a month with somebody or 2 weeks and it's obvious, like dating. So where you're like, hey, I don't think 2 weeks, this is cool. A month, okay, 2 months, oh, okay, no, so people know that really quick if you're true or not. So be yourself, be genuine. But I still have those notes saved. Actually, they're right here. We're just talking about, Mike Hamilton, Mike Strickland. It's all right here from 10 years ago from my desk here, kind of going through them, just looking at some of the advices that they gave me. So hopefully some of you guys kind of keep some of this. I don't know if Dr. Riordan records this, but so if you take 1 or 2 things from this tonight and run with it a little bit, because you don't know what's going to happen or who can help you get a job. And like I tell Dr. Riordan, if we can help any of you guys out, and obviously if he endorses you, we can help you out around the country. We want to help you guys do well. I mean, that's part of being FAU, part of being FAU athletics, is anybody who works for you that's a tied to you want them to do well. You want to root for your people. I think that's something that people don't do enough. I think we need to do that. We need to root for each other. That's my long answer, Phil. Sorry.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
We've actually had people that have come to us, students, and said they're not interested in working in Division I. They want to work in Division II and Division III. I find that very interesting. We have a student right now who's the SID at Florida Tech. He got some experience over there, and he's over there, and they dropped football, but they kept him. So I think he's doing some other different things, besides being an SID, but he still has a job.
Yeah.
But he's perfectly happy in Division II. Really happy.
And I also think, Russell will tell you this, I think some other guys will tell you that work here. You do get to learn more at a mid-major or a Division II or Division III. You're going to get a lot more on your plate. At the major schools, they literally have someone that just covers one area of the country, and your job is just to call people and raise money. That's it. You have such niches that that's all it is. You don't do anything else. At these other schools, we do everything. There's nothing that doesn't pass a day that we might not, do this or do that, stuff that we've, you do a little bit more of, where you don't have, even at West Point, we had 14 people in development. We only have 3 here in the athletic department. We had 14 at West Point when I left, but we only had, at one time, they were only 4, and they grew it to 14. So right now we're at 3 at FAU for, kind of seeing it. So even there, I was able just to fundraise and travel and didn't have to worry about everything else. But I still thought with game day operations, but to a smaller degree. Here we do the operation piece to development to the end of the day, and Dakota's helps us out, or Davis helps us out on game day for that. So it's just different things that you don't really see that you do, but it just happens. You just kind of go with it. You got to figure it out on the fly and learn how to do it. And but yeah, it is important. And like Dr. Riordan said, some people find it and they get to a school and they say, "This is great. This is what I want. I'm happy. I'm content." And I think there's something to be said for contentness too in this life. I mean, if you always want more, you're never going to be satisfied. So, I mean, there's got to be something you want to get better, but at the same time, you still need to stay content and within yourself as you grow and understand where you want to be in life. And, sometimes you want to be the head SID, or, hey, you want to be just a development officer. Hey, I just want to, be an assistant coach. I don't want to be the guy. I'm good with this. This is what I want to be. And that's okay. Nobody has to be the guy or has to do this or the girl. Hey, I want to be this. I have to be this. That's the only way I'll be successful. I have a buddy that literally only wants to be one AD job. And I tell him in life, if he goes through life and he doesn't become that job, will he be completely unsatisfied in life? And you're kind of like, man, that doesn't really want to go. I mean, if that's how you judge yourself, he's done great things already, and you're only 35. And you're like, hey, you've done incredible things to where you're at right now. So don't tell yourself you didn't achieve because you didn't get that one job. Luke?
Hi, Michael. How's it going?
Good, brother.
Yeah, I was just I wanted to I'll just quickly get to the point. Since we spoke in your office, a lot of things have changed for me, and one of them being I found the direction I want to go in, and the other one being I've got a mentor now. So my assistant coach in my first institution, his dad was your mentor, as you mentioned to me then. So I was just curious how your mentors helped and impacted you, and what situations you feel as if maybe you couldn't have gone through without them, and how you use them to aid you in your progress.
That's a great question. I think mentors are really important. I don't have to really ask like, hey, can you be my mentor? Or, hey, can you have a question? I think some of your senior leaders just get it and they're there for you. There was two at Belmont. Betty Wiseman, she was a senior women's administrator. She was at Belmont for 50 years, started as a women's basketball coach. She was incredible. Steve Barrick, who was Houston Barrick, your first coach's dad's incredible guy. He would do everything for anybody else. I mean, the facility's dream, Russell, facility's dream. He would send stuff to make sure people knew what was going on. But they're constantly there. I always check in with them. My head basketball coach in college, even though I only played for him for 1 year and I played baseball for 4, I ended up coaching with him for a year. I talk to him all the time. His son's plays basketball at Notre Dame now. But we talk all the time. I ask him things in the industry, like what he would do or what he wouldn't do. There's a guy that's a Division II senior associate AD for development. Same thing. He does never want to be the AD. He's at Indianapolis University, right? And fundraising is fundraising no matter how you look at it. Whatever I'm fundraising for, it's still fundraising. If I'm fundraising at a hospital, fundraising at a D2 school, D3 school, I'm still trying to raise money. So I pick his brain all the time. He gets it to a T, different things that work for getting people grassroots or big gifts. But he can kind of get it to the core. He gets to the core of fundraising without, giving you a bunch of hoop about we did this or that. He just comes right to you. And so finding those mentors that are really honest and open with you, and I'm sure I have a few more, but just trying to pick people's brains. And I definitely go to a few guys. There's a COO at Washington and a senior associate AD at William & Mary. But at different levels and different schools, I mean, as you talk, I mean, they're more like friends and mentees, just the same, and mentors is the same. They're kind of used just as, people that are like help guiding you, that you feel comfortable with asking questions. I would say people that you're open to talking to with, like having, 7, 8, 9 of those people is a lot. Having 1 or 2 that you really rely on, like I'd say Steve Barrick and Damon Goodwin are my 2 out of everybody. I still have the head coach at lacrosse at West Point, Coach Alvarez, pretty honest from a coaching standpoint. If you ask him a question about coaches, he'll tell you straight up. So it's just stuff like that, just using different resources and different people. I wouldn't say, and it just plays on to different questions. Like right now, this is brand new for everybody, this pandemic, so it's really hard to ask anybody, hey, how are you handling this? But you're going through it together, so you can say, hey, how are you guys navigating it? Just feel for your people just as much as they feel for you. But I do think it's very important to use them because they're your network. I mean, they're the people that can help you get jobs or who you meet, or even same thing like Coach Barrick put a girl in for an application here, and if he sends me an application, I know she's really good because he's not going to waste my time. He's not going to waste anybody's time. So he'll cut right through it and say, hey, this girl applied for one of your operations jobs, which is now closed, Russell, I believe, for now. So it's just those things. You can use each other throughout, or hey, do you know this person? And the mutual connections usually get to a conversation a lot quicker than someone cold calling. You know what I mean? Cold calling someone out of the blue. Now people do respond, and I do occasionally to people that respond, depending on where they're at or who they're from, or if they mention somebody in the note. But I like helping people because at the end of the day, like I'd rather help somebody than, you don't want to hurt anybody, but anybody that reaches out, I'm happy to help them or try to connect them if I know who they are, or some of those things, or have quality conversations. But the advice is pretty free. I think you can just kind of hand it out. Anybody can give it to anybody. But I think having good advice and people you trust is important because you want to have people in your corner in today. And I just think, and on that point, whatever you guys do not burn bridges, no matter what. That's right. One of the biggest things I would say in this industry is so small. College athletics, even pro sports, it's small. Like people know each other. NFL, I think, is the hardest industry to get in. I just think those industries, they know each other really well. And if you make a splash somewhere that's not supposed to be made, people are going to know. You know, there's definitely people that we know that are going to have a tough time getting a job near me or with any of my friends. And I don't speak bad of them, but I know of them. I don't like speaking badly of people, but I know of them. So make sure when you in a job, people always remember two things. And this is what Boo Corrigan always said. They remember your first impression and they remember how you left. So remember, as you're finishing a job, even if you put in your 2 weeks somewhere, finish strong. You know, start well, finish strong, and let people know, obviously, in between that you're a good worker, and you'll get jobs. And that's part of it. Mike Strickland said the same thing. If you're good, they'll find good work for you, and you'll find your way through life if you bust your butt. Good question, Vuk.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Hey, Michael, how's it going? I have a sales question for you.
Yep.
So obviously you've had a ton of success within sales, but I'm sure there's been some slumps. I remember my sales manager telling me, you know, don't get too high with the highs, don't get too low with the lows in sales. What's your method of kind of staying like even keel, like, you know, not getting too down on yourself and like shaking off the rust and everything and getting back on the saddle?
Yeah, I mean, that's good advice for the team manager. I mean, I use a Tony Gwynn quote, or Tony Gwynn had an approach to baseball, and I don't know if all you guys know Tony Gwynn, it might be before your time. But Tony Gwynn, he has some quotes out there. 0 for 4 one day, 0 for 4 for a week, 4 for 4 the next week. If you're high and you're low, you gotta bring yourself back to bat every day. You know what I mean? You can have bad days, but don't let them bury you. You know what I mean? And it's part of life. You're gonna have up and downs. But that approach, that mindset of, you know, kind of putting your pants back on and just come back and dial away and figure out. And in the sales world and development world, we're doing the same thing. I mean, Alvin and I are constantly calling people and trying to get people engaged, and there's going to be a lot of no's. It's just being okay with accepting no, and don't let it get you down. Like there's enough no. I've heard no so many times in my life. I can't even, you know, I don't even know how many times. It's just been like, okay, pick up the phone, next one. You know what I mean? It's kind of that mentality in life too. As you move through stuff, you just got to have thick skin. You do. I think sales is definitely made for people with thick skin. And you got to keep punching through it. But again, it depends on where you're at, who your managers are, what the product you were selling, you know, how you feel about it. I mean, that's a lot of the things too. I would say it's tough. I mean, it's really tough to just kind of get in there and at certain levels. You know, I had a friend that worked with us at West Point that did sales up there. It was kind of sour because he did it with the New Jersey Devils, and they did a sales for a year. And they dumped all but one guy. So, like, it's tough when you try to keep a positive mentality when, hey, I was the third sales guy and I got to let go. And I was 3 of 24. So it's like, man. So I understand that can knock you down, but getting back up on the horse and riding it is important. I just kind of had that mentality, and I know that all people aren't built the same. So that's a challenge too, is, you know, just got to get back on that horse and keep making calls, emails, text messages. And now even when I was doing sales in 12 and 13, I mean, you know, we didn't have as much direct messaging then. Now, like I've got in development at West Point, I think I got every social media, I got a gift. So you just got to find ways to talk to people. If people don't answer their phone, you know, try LinkedIn. If people don't answer, you know, text message, try, you know, direct message on Twitter. See where they're active. Pay attention to it. You know, not quite stalk people, but just figure out how people navigate. Like the safe stalk, you know, like not stalk people, but just kind of stalk needs to be out of this conversation, Dr. Riordan, but pay attention to how they navigate their world. Because some people, they work better under a certain world. If you text me, I'll probably get back to you pretty quick. But like, you know, emails can be a little slower, calls can be right away. So it's just like, it just depends on how I navigate. I got a guy on Snapchat because he looked at his Snapchat. He's like a big broker in New York City, got him on Snapchat, sent his card to me in Snapchat. So I screenshotted it, got his credit card. But he wasn't answering me, but I found him on Snapchat. So you have to be creative. So I think that's the thing, making it interesting for yourself in sales too, because some days can be a drag. Or say like at West Point when I think we were 2 and 10 my first year, like just being excited, like trying to make it creative, like just have fun with it. Like get a couple of your buddies to do something stupid and, hey, first person to do this buys, you know, gets lunch from somebody in the room, you know, last person to get a sale buys lunch, you know, so you just play stuff like that. And you had to bring some energy because it's one of those jobs you just can't show up at 8:30 and just turn it on. It's like you got to be ready to roll. And that's the thing. I would just say, and it doesn't happen overnight though either, David. I mean, I wasn't like my first day on the job. I remember they tried to script me, and I was like, this is horrible, guys. Like, I can't be scripted. I'm not going to read from a page. It's not me. But it took me about a week and a half, and then it just clicked, and I just went. First guy I sold was Keith Startup, 2012. His last name was Startup, worked out perfect. So from there, it just kind of went. Yeah, it didn't happen overnight though. It took a lot of practice. Now for me to dial the phone is super easy. At first I didn't love being on the phone all the time. Then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, this is not bad. So, and I think finding that balance between emails and phone calls, and I know when you're working for sales managers, they want the call numbers way up, but I also think the efficiency of your call is just as important as the number. Because I can dial 100 numbers for you, bud. But just because I did 70, but I navigated it differently and had conversations, I think today we need to be a little bit more creative. But there is proof in the calling, though, too. So that's why there are people that say just pound the phones. So good question, but I just think it just takes time and it's going to fit you. I just don't think give up just because you have one experience or two experiences that didn't go well. Like my dad always used to say, like if you're guarded after the first cut, make another cut, just figure out what it is that fits you. Don't give up on it just because you have one bad experience.
We've had that happen a lot to us here. We're always having the Dolphins and the Marlins and even the Heat coming after us, wanting to hire our students for sales positions. And a lot of our people, and quite honestly, I was just like them. I graduated St. John's with a degree in athletic administration in 1982, and I was petrified of sales because I feared rejection, and I didn't want to get into it. I got into it for about maybe 3 months. I worked for my landlord selling emulsifier, cleaning drop ceilings. When the ceilings in your office got dirty, you would spray this stuff in there, and it was basically like glue or paint that would cover up the dirt. But it was sales, and I hated it, and I got out of it. But at least I tried it. But I can empathize with our students in the past and now who maybe don't realize that it takes a while, but some of them really have that adverse feeling towards sales. But the thing is that the Dolphins and the Marlins keep coming after us, and the Heat, and they say, yeah, we got plenty of jobs, but they're in sales.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest too, Dr. Riordan, I think this area, similar to New York, I mean, we had a little bit more family-friendly in northern New York, so you can go across the county, and when people work in the city and they don't see their kids, I can tell people on that all the time. West Point, great family place, bring your kid. It was an easy sell because you had that. Now, same with, I think FAU is similar to that sell, but I also think South Florida market is similar to New York, and the fact that they are pretty quick with you, and they're very fair weather because of where we're at. I think it's a tough job because the Marlins, Dolphins, and Heat have cycled through some teams too, and when people have tasted success and then you don't have it, it makes a challenge. Now, it's great for experience. Now, I know there's a guy that's the director of outbound sales at Alabama that worked for the Dolphins, and he got great experience there, but he just had to learn. He learned that it was experience and not necessarily about the outcomes. And I think that's what some people need to keep in their mind. They need to think long term. If you want to stay in sales for a while, keep doing it, keep grinding through it, but know that there's a purpose to get out of here, or not necessarily out of here, but know that this is a starting job, and I'm going to try to find a next niche where I can be a little bit more of a consultant and figure out, maybe get into a premium job from that job. So figure out the next step in that role. But I would say that's probably Dr. Riordan, finding those schools obviously, or those places are always going to need jobs because that's a high turnover job. Because people don't, like you said, don't want to stick it. And it's tough. I just think it's tough because you don't see returns. And if you're only getting paid on sales, it's hard. So that's the toughest thing. And in certain places, especially in Miami, it's not the cheapest place to live or work. So it's hard to keep people to stay when you're only making X amount of dollars in 6 months. And some of your best sales are done between, months, once you get to year one and year two. Same with development. After you've been somewhere 3-4 years, the gifts get a lot easier. And same to sales. When you get to year 2, year 3, it gets easier because you know more. But that first, 3 months to 9 months, you turn a lot of people over because cost of living and really being able to turn over product quick. I mean, you really need to have some good sales fast. I think that's the toughest part about those jobs. David could probably speak to it because he did the Dolphins thing. Anybody else on here tried the Dolphins or Heat? Marlins, that's a tough ticket right there. Right now, I mean, it's a beautiful stadium, but I think that's a tough sales job too. Just trying to get people in there when there's that many seats. How do you get someone to buy pre? And that's what our guys go through sometimes too with single game buyers, is that we've noticed analytics shows that a lot of our buyers buy 22 days prior or 5 days to the game. So between like day 6 and day 17, or day 6 and like day 21, it's like idle in South Florida. So, but there's stuff now out there telling you that. So now I think there's way more information to make your sales guys more dangerous, because if they learn those numbers or learn what's going on with the analytics, they can become dangerous if they study a little bit more about how people work or navigate. But it's hard to learn that in 3 months when you're just trying to learn how to dial the phone. So that's kind of my take on the sales jobs. But I mean, if you want it for the experience and put it on your resume and know that you want to go somewhere after that, it's great, because like NFL is on David's resume now. Even though, I mean, like 6 months, it's still valuable experience. You know, even though he didn't do it forever, it's one of those things that he knows he tried it and he can speak to it.
I want you to go into the whole COVID-19 thing, but I saw someone popped in here, so I'm not going to push that yet. If people have more questions, please jump in.
Hey, Mike, how do you manage your time when you're wearing so many different hats and overseeing so many different things?
Great question, buddy. The calendar is very helpful. The worst part about it is when stuff pops up. Like when you think you got your day organized, you're like, yes, I got 2 hours to crush out some stuff here. And then someone comes like out of left field and just drops something on you. That's the best. But it's really just knowing when you got to put in extra time. When you're a leader, I think you have to understand that sometimes you're going to have to go home after you put the baby down. You're going to have to put in some time between 8 and 10 or 8 and 11 to just crank out some emails or crank out what you need to get done, or figure out like, hey, my top 10 things tomorrow are this, and I need to get these ones done, or these top 7 things need to get done. And I'm not leaving the office until that. You know, with the baby, it's been a little more challenging, but like coming home at 5 a couple of days a week when my wife works, it's not bad, because I can do those things from 8 to 10 and knock them out. But it's just learning how to balance your schedule, knowing what's most important, making sure you're organized. Like I have a list in my notebook here. It just kind of says, you know, what I have for our athletic director, what I have for Alvin, who's on this call, you know, what I have for different people in our department. When I even like send an email one way, knowing if it's important, I put it on there to make sure that I remember that I need to follow up on that. So even just making sure that you're keeping track of yourself, if it's on the calendar or if it's in your notebook. And then my calls, I have a whole side of like people I want to get a hold of. And I've probably got a lot of them done this week already. I mean, it's Friday tomorrow. Some days I forget what day it is, Alex. But, you know, you're trying to navigate this whole thing. I think being flexible and understanding how you can do your job and what's most important and who needs to be talked to, and prioritizing that each day when you come in, or saying, hey, and then also learning how to delegate. You know, Alvin, I've given stuff to Hayden, and some of our sales team as they pick up stuff, and ops team, if they can handle a project, I'm going to hand it off to them. I'm trying to do that more and more as I learn what's most important. But these last 4 months, it's been challenging because we're not all together. It's a lot easier when you're together than it is when you're apart. In the last 2 weeks, we've been up at the office. So that's been helpful for like Brian and Mary and Alvin to be around each other. It's a little easier to talk in person, even though we're doing the 6 feet and mask, making sure we're following protocol. But yeah, it's a lot easier in person, in my opinion, because I mean, not as many things are gonna, you know, you have to do as many phone calls. You can catch each other up on meetings when you see each other. The WebEx has brought a new thing, like especially on our campus, where if I'm doing like one-on-ones with our ticket office and I don't have to run over to the even over to the Wally, if I can do a WebEx without moving my desk, I don't lose 15 minutes of my day driving over there and driving back. So it may have shown us some neat ideas that we don't have to waste our time sometimes on the transfer and say, hey, everybody pick up at their computer because you're coming from all over campus. And we're a smaller campus, but at the same time, that's 15 minutes of my day I just got back because 8 minutes transfer. So, I mean, I look at it that sometimes that fine tooth and saying, hey, not every day is like that, obviously, but some days when I know there's a lot to get done, you got to fine tooth it a little bit. And if you can take some time out to make sure you can make time for some other things. If you can get a donor call in 4 minutes, you need to do it. You know, if you're walking to your car, you call somebody. You know, just need to figure out different ways that you get stuff done. And it does take some time in figuring out what your priorities are and where you're at. And a lot of it goes with like the leadership and what we're doing. So projects that are most urgent. And right now, obviously, we're all just preparing for the next time we get to say go. You know what I mean? That's what we're waiting for the next day, but we're ready. If we got to turn this thing on, we can go. And it might take us about, a week to put everything final to paper, maybe a little bit longer than that, but we're prepared enough to go to play September 12th. So if that happens, and obviously for our other sports, volleyball and soccer, they're kind of still on hold until we get approval for them to come back to campus. So it's been interesting. So, but I think, Alex, that's a good question. And the best you can do is really try to plan your day out, put it on a calendar. And if you could log time for like, hey, I need to make calls during this time, or I need to answer emails during this time, that's helpful. It doesn't always go that way because like I said earlier, stuff that comes out of left field or right field, you got to handle in the moment. And then you realize what stuff really needs to be handled right in that moment. And you say, I don't need to do that right now. You just need to put it on a radar. Or I leave a lot of stuff unread in my email. I don't like stuff read, so I leave stuff unread. So that way it bothers me enough that I can click on it again to come back. So that's how I kind of do it too. But everybody has their own way. Whatever works for you, I would recommend it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Speaking of flipping the switch, how was the switch changed for you in both your jobs, in the game operations, ticketing, in terms of sales, new sales, sustainable sales?
Yeah.
And the same thing for advancement. Obviously, tough time to be going out looking for donors and scholarship, and also Paradise Club memberships, and sustainability. And I've heard that some people in this pandemic, it's all about themselves. They want their money back. What am I going to get for what? They're not thinking about the school. They're not thinking about what they're going through. It's all about them. So how are you guys dealing with that, and what changes have you made to adjust?
That's a great question. I actually think, and Alvin's on this call too, it's important. We got lucky that we were here for 2 years. Like, if we would have inherited this and then this happened, it would have been ugly. But since we had relationships with people and we've built relationships over the last 2 years, a lot of people have been able to learn like what we're going through as a department from Alvin and I, and other people that talk externally, that we've been able to continue to get those relationships. Our Paradise Club, our annual fund has been pretty solid, almost I would say we're probably 75 or 80% renewed to this point. We backed the deadline up, but that's really good for this time of year. The golf tournaments, we missed out on some money there. And then we had one major gift last year that was closed, but we closed 2 major gifts this year that were planned gifts. So we didn't, it wasn't as good as last year on the overall dollar amount. But same as the foundation for the university, our goal was 50 million. We got to 31, but we did 37 the year before. So to get 31 of 37 is pretty good, knowing that you lose about 3.5 months from COVID. Alvin and I, at the beginning, we just really touched base with people to see how they were doing. And once we saw that, once we got to certain people, once we checked in on, make sure they're doing all right, there's a lot of just relationship checking in. Now we've kind of moved into fundraising mode because, if this lasts for a long time, we still need to find funds for our department. We don't want to have to get rid of things or, tighten budgets even more. A lot of schools have lost people like coaching jobs, programs. We're not in those discussions. But we're just kind of going through now and trying to find new leads for development, but also building on the ones we have and trying to find who else should be invested. We got a new donor, 2 new donors already this year. Our goal is now 10 a month. Even through this, I actually think fundraising, we can explain our story a little bit better for the needs. So we have a little bit more tools in our pocket now. People might not have the means or the wants to do it right now because they're dealing with, they want to keep liquid, they want to keep cash in their pocket because of everything going on. And then we get that. And so that's why a lot of the ticket sales haven't been renewed. I thought the sales team has done a great job. And we have in development, we also have some ticket accounts that we manage that we take care of as well. But I think we've renewed at a really good clip in the middle of this. Like I said earlier, it's about 74% renewal dollar-wise. I don't know if it's exact account-wise, but dollar-wise, it's 74%. Which I think is amazing, not having 3.5 months. So basically, January to March time, we sold a lot of people before this really kicked in. We've only had a handful of accounts that have asked back for money already to say they're not coming. We've talked about a lot of different options behind the scenes. Credit for next year, donations to the program. Do we have a partial season? There's something coming out tonight. It looks like the CAA maybe. backing out of football, which is Stony Brook. So that'd be interesting if they back out. That gives us a whole new element because our home schedule hasn't been touched yet. The Big Ten has already canceled on us, so our Minnesota game is out. The last night was the first night I saw somebody during COVID that advertised the game. TCU had their first game canceled. I forget with who, and they actually were asking the country last night who wants to play on September 5th. So they were kind of more eager about it than anybody else has been putting out just because of vibes in certain climates and communities. It's hard because we're navigating so much as a society. But like Dr. Riordan said, I think there's been some people that have stepped up in the middle of this and really helped out and understand like we need support. It'll be really interesting when we come to 21 if what happens with our sports and how people support again. I do think a lot of our folks understand and will give again in 21 because everybody needs tax write-offs and still wants to support the school. So I could still see us doing really well there. But like Dr. Riordan said, for us, we're just going to go out and keep building relationships. The world's still ticking. The world's still moving. People can make an excuse that COVID-19 is happening, and it's definitely happening. But at the end of the day, if you just get lazy because that's happening, you can't. We still have to be understanding of people's situations. You will have a lot of people that don't want to leave their houses, definitely. We did some stewardship where I took some stuff to people's houses and their driveways. Instead of going anywhere out in public, they were safe there. I handed it off, talked to them for 15 minutes, and left. So really being creative right now and being safe at the same time is important. But there are people out in this society that are working their butt off just as much as us, and they want to see FAU keep moving forward. And so we're going to keep doing what we need to do to make FAU better. So we're going to keep calling people. We're going to keep trying to reach out via email. We're going to start some new things on our social media and try to touch base with people in different ways. So that's our biggest thing is how do we tap into different areas? How do we become involved with more units? I think we're getting a lot more creative because we have to. I'd like to do some more things, but it's just everybody being on the same page and balance and how do you navigate it with your coaches too, because our coaches are going through a whole new phase of life too. There's usually all of our coaches, nobody's in their first year here, so all of them have a routine. So same with us, we have a routine. What do you normally do in June? What do you normally do in July? What do you normally do in August? And obviously we fundraise a lot, but a lot of our September through December is more stewardship and take care of people, and that season might change a little bit. So how does that look? So there's a lot of stuff that you have to ask yourself and talk about. And I think that's the biggest thing with tickets. Like I talked about earlier with the Michigan situation, Illinois, how they're navigating it. We haven't made a final decision yet. We've talked about a lot of different things. We do have some decisions on paper, but I can't share obviously with this group. But at the same time, we're getting very close to making our call and what we're doing internally or externally for everybody. But I think our conference will be one of the last to make a decision. So as you see all these conference decisions come out, I don't think Conference USA is just going to jump at it. They're going to wait, see what everybody else does, and make sure we do the right thing, that, that we're not the only one just sitting out on an island. But you never know. So, we've got 4 schools in our conference that are dealing with no COVID. So I don't know what it looks like. You know what I mean? So there's everything's on the table, like everybody says that, but it's true. It really is like we could be open for, okay, so we play conference games. We have 8 of them, or do we have 10? Like, what does that look like? Do we have 6? Do you play it? Why? Is there a national championship? How do you navigate that? The bowl games are all separate. So, it's really interesting. There's a lot of questions, and I think a lot of people are removing them because of the financial efforts, but I don't know what the overall answer is there. Let me see my other notes here. Just learning from different people and like what people are coming up with. We've got to lean on our health advisors on campus just as much, or in the county. That stuff can get screwy, and it's different for everywhere. Like, certain places say, hey, open air, you can have 100% capacity for your premium. Some areas say you can't. It's very interesting. So you got to navigate within your space too, and how that works out. And the Patriots come out at 20%, and everybody looks at the Patriots and everybody thinks Patriots are the, hey, that's what you got to do. So it's amazing. Watch how many people come out with 20% in the next 4 days because of the Patriots. It's so weird. We're somewhat creative, but not at the same time. But I just think it's a very interesting time. But I also think you can't shy away from stuff. I think you still have to be aggressive. And I think for us to protect FAU, we need to keep raising money because we want to keep everybody hired and we want to keep programs here. And I think every school that does the opposite and say, oh man, our people are going through a lot, but all of us are going through it. Yeah, every business is going through it. We all got to help each other out or figure a way to, navigate in our space right now. But I still think there's plenty of people in this location, in this area, that are doing well, and and FAU alums around the country that are doing well, that we have never connected with. And there's some stories that we just have stumbled upon here in the last few weeks of people doing really well around the country that are FAU alum that just haven't been engaged. So we're going to keep engaging with people and figure out who can help, who can't, and it's understanding. And people sometimes aren't in the right time to give, so you understand that too. But our job is to keep asking people until we're blue in the face, and they tell us no, 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 and then yes, 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 and then we'll work on some projects too with certain sports. And there's probably some potential there, like scoreboards and facility upgrades. If we can get some of that stuff done, I think people like that kind of stuff too, where they can give back to things like that. So we'll focus on some of that stuff on top of the annual giving this year. And with no events, we don't have as many distractions, but we don't have much to sell or excite people by. I think a lot of people saw the other day, Deion Sanders' son is coming to FAU, and we were able to promote the crap out of that this week with our donors. The excitement through that was crazy. I mean, if you don't know already, we have Ray Lewis's son, Michael Irvin's son, Terrell Owens' son, Warren Sapp's son. So it's pretty neat to have those guys down here. I don't know how many of them will play. I think Deion Sanders' son probably the best of the group. I think Ray Lewis's son played special teams last year, but to see those guys play a little bit, Irvin's son played at Miami, so he'll play here. So it'll be kind of cool to see some of those guys around. And it'll be interesting just kind of see how we navigate this whole thing. I'm looking forward to Willie getting out there. Willie's done an incredible job with our recruiting class. Probably going to be, I don't know how high we'll be in the country, but to put a 4-star and a lot of 3-stars on there is better than we've ever done. So I'm excited to see what's ahead for FAU football. Building a $72 million facility, there's still a couple $1 million going into that for our academic center. Our academic piece of that is incredible for our athletes. All of our athletes could use that. Our football training center and football area is just going to be beautiful. When they finally put the design on there, the final design, which is a couple million there to take care of it, make it look nice, it is very, it's really, really special building that's going to keep drawing people to FAU. And actually, the business school, Dr. Riordan, obviously is in there. New office, new room, hopefully that you guys get to be in for your second year. It's beautiful. So I really think that building is a building that's going to keep drawing people to FAU. And so hopefully we keep building more and building other places as we keep growing. But I think that's something that we can't shy away from, because if we don't make movements now, we may get those effects in 3, 4, 5 years if we didn't catch up. We're going to play catch up again. So we need to keep the bikes and keep the pedals moving. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Let me ask just one follow-up, and I'll give it back to the students. Who are the geniuses in the Conference USA that say that they don't have COVID, that they're not dealing with COVID?
Oh, UTEP hasn't had much of it lately. Huntington, West Virginia, Marshall, Hattiesburg, Southern Miss, and Ruston, La Tech. I don't know. They've had it, Dr. Riordan, but I think they're...
All those states are like going nuts right now with this.
Oh, they picked it up? This was about 2 weeks ago when I talked with all them, so don't take me for that. I didn't know if... Well, Texas might be going nuts, but I know it's Houston. UTEP's out there, man. It's out there.
Yeah, I realize Marshall gets the newspapers every 2 weeks, but I mean, they should really know about this. Should try watch CNN a little bit on TV.
Well, they know what's going on, but not in their local areas. That's what I'm saying. Not necessarily.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm just yelling at them.
I know. I hear you. But yeah, it is. So it's interesting to say the least.
More questions from the students. I've asked my last one. The rest of the time is for the students.
Hi, Mr. Graffin. My name is Laura. Thank you for speaking to our class tonight. My question, in speaking to your role as a leader, how do you keep your team motivated during these uncertain times that we're dealing with?
It's a challenge. It really is, especially my sales guys right now. I think that's the hardest job in the world right now, because they have no idea. Like, hey, come to our next event. I don't know what it is. But right now it's September 26th, probably as of tomorrow, if they cancel that game. Hopefully CAA was bluffing. hopefully the media had put something out that was wrong. But no, I think that's a great question, Laura. I think Alvin's on here. I try to stay really positive. I'm a positive person. I try to find the best in the situation instead of the worst. If there's 99% things that are going wrong, I'll try to find that 1% and focus on that. Just because life is way too short to get caught up in the negativity. Let's try to get better during this time. I think our ticket ops team has done an incredible job trying to be as flexible as possible, trying all these different things, learning from different schools, learning from Ticketmaster. Hey, can we try that? Will they let us do this? Everybody's being very creative. Today we just sent out our season ticket holder gift. Dr. Riordan, you'll get yours soon. You got a new address.
You knew that, huh?
Yeah, I heard that already. You got a new address coming through the ring. So we sent out season ticket holder rings today. The team worked together. They worked in basically silos in the ticket office. 3 of them worked on packaging and shipping it to each other, just handing them off, and they worked in their space. They got all that stuff out. But I think for the most part, the team's pretty positive and they want to get better. And I want to see them do better. So I just try to stay there because everybody in this country, hey, we all have jobs right now. Let's be positive. We're all wanting to get FAU sports back. We're all working our butt off every day. And I think our tennis coaches and our basketball coaches are some of the toughest too because they're such competitive people. They want to fight tomorrow. They want to fight somebody and play tomorrow. They're ready or preparing to get ready. But they're like, what are we preparing for? Because we don't know. And then our tennis coach has 9 international students, but he's still trying to recruit for the year after and the year after. So he's like, hey, my guys are good, but I can get better. And he's like, same with basketball, we can get better. So it's really hard to those coaches. They're plenty motivated. So I'm not worried as much about the coaching staffs. It's the ops team and the sales team and our development team keeping them motivated and a step forward each day. I just think there's enough to do, Laura, that there's always something to do right now. And even if we if sports get delayed, if soccer and volleyball and these sports get delayed, it would be awful because, kids are going to get delayed a year in their life and it's just a lot of things that, missing a year of sports. I feel sick for the college kid right now because they're going through stuff that you just never dreamed of and missing out a year. I was injured for part of my junior year and I hated it. I even hated being in the games. Even though I love my guys, I can't play. This is awful. This is the worst, just sitting here and not being able to play. So not being able to play and just it's something that's so much out of all of our control is very challenging, but trying to just keep our guys motivated. And I think it's even harder from afar, Laura, but I just think constantly giving them good stuff. Our ticket operations guy sends out a quote of the day, just try to little positive feeds here and there. I try to talk to all of them at least once a week, twice a week in some cases, and some guys every day. So it just depends where we're at on that too. So it's an ongoing process, you know what I mean? But I think a lot of people are grateful to have jobs. I think a lot of people are just, they see friends without jobs. They see people struggling, so they understand, I have a job, I'm grateful. I'm not trying to be harking on them for all these different things. So, and I always think we can get better each day, no matter what it is or what we're dealing with. And, our sales guys, I can go back to them again, and our ops guys, they produce stuff quick. And then the sales guys go down to a T on who's coming back, who's not, as long as they've answered in some way. So they can probably tell you about 90% of our accounts, what their plans are, no matter what. Hey, I'm out or I'm in. So that's big time, when you got guys that are doing that. Now I think August, September, October, it'll get interesting, Laura, as it depends on how things go. And I think that's the hardest part for all of us. We're all just kind of sitting here anxious and trying to stay positive and not focus on that, just focus on today and controlling the controllables. I think that's the biggest thing that you can try to do. But it's hard. But I'll say, being a leader from afar is even harder, and then kind of inheriting this role during this too is not the easiest. But as the guys in Russell can speak, I'm the same guy to everybody, so I don't try to be anybody different. That's who I am. So, and I work hard, so I lead by example. So I think that's easier for me because I work hard. But I think that's everybody's leadership style is different. So, but at West Point, I learned that a little bit. You lead from the front. As long as you're doing it with them, everybody jumps on board.
Thank you.
Hey, Michael, this is Brian. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. So my question would be, when you were talking about being in grad school and working so many different jobs at once, what would you say was the biggest outcome, or rather, what was the most rewarding part of doing so many different things? Was it gaining experience in all those areas? Was it networking or being able to shadow other coworkers or maybe managers or executives, and kind of maybe that helped you get you to where you are today. Could you speak on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, and I can kind of speak to like each one of these jobs I had, not every single one, but all of them had a great like person that I looked up to in each one of them, and I still can kind of relate back to all of them. Working at the YMCA, there's a guy named Richard Minchie. I think he actually still works there. He does it for his family. He worked a full-time job from like 10 to 7 p.m., but he would open the YMCA every day from 4:30 to 9:30 every day, and he knew everybody. And that's just kind of a person that you just kind of felt like you connected to because he just cared about people. He did it for his family, but he would work like 16-hour days and do it every day and drive like 30 minutes away or 35 minutes away and come down. That's one guy like I never forget, but having that mentality that he had a never quit mentality. Membership job at the YMCA isn't much, but he just kind of was there and doing it, and he did it on top of that. But like people like that when you're doing your job, I think is important. Like everyday people like are very important. You never know what you can learn from them. I think a lot of us think we know it all, but you never know. Like that's a guy that I learned so much from and how he treated people of all shapes, sizes, colors, everything. He treated everybody the same. He loved on all of them. He joked with all of them. He knew people that would come through. He knew almost the times they were coming in. He knew everything. And he had been doing that for like 7 years at the time I got there. And I think he still does some of it, but he's much more part-time now. His kids have gotten a little bit older. But I think, just sticking to those people and not writing stuff down. I think I should have wrote more down than I did. But like writing like little things down as you learn stuff from certain people in your niches or in your roles. Vanderbilt, learning from a couple of those guys. I mean, Jeff Miller from Vanderbilt, he's still at the ISP for now IMG at Vanderbilt. He always said the same thing with networking. He's like, you could talk. Someone could say, drop me an email anytime or, text me, but calling, that's the effort. Like making the effort to call, making the extra effort to reach out to people. Like he always said, like make a true relationship with somebody. Don't just, say you're networking by emailing them once or texting them once. Hey, I did that today. Like a check mark. Do it with like a purpose. Care about people. I think that's some of those things. But like just in general, I just think, like I said earlier, you never know who's going to hire you. You never know who's going to, look for you in a job, or never know who's going to say, hey, there's a job open here. You need to go after it. Or, hey, I think you should do this. Or you never know. I think making friends with a lot of people and just staying in touch with people is important. Because I think life gets busy, but how do you stay in touch with so many people with all your life going on? And I think it's important to drop people's notes or just check in on them. It gets harder as you get more in your life. I say it's actually it's easier in grad school just because you don't necessarily have income yet or anything else. You don't know a lot. I was naive enough to just do everything. I think at one point it wore me out though. Like you just have to take a deep breath sometimes and walk back and not put pressure on yourself that you're going to accomplish everything. Just know that it'll come to you. You just have to keep working, find the right people to work for. That's part of it too. But just work really hard for the people that are there. I mean, Bill Belichick said it best: do your job. Like if you're there, if you're doing it and you're kicking butt and say, hey, can I do something else? Ask like that. Don't ask like, hey, I don't think you're giving me enough, like blah, blah, blah. Just say, hey, is there anything else I can help with? Go at them with questions or suggestions, or instead of just being like, hey, you're not giving me enough, I don't like this, come up with just come up with ideas instead of being like, you don't like something. I think being positive goes a long way, or being, just being in that regard with those people. I think keep asking people those type of questions and just like I said earlier, be a sponge. Try to learn as much as you can from everybody in different roles. But, if you're only working 20 hours a week right now and doing school, like you can do more. You know what I mean? And even if it's one day a week somewhere, like going to the Vanderbilt ticket office and learning and meeting people and learn how they do stuff, like helping out, coming to FAU's ticket office if you're on campus, I think Pose is going to post some part-time jobs here too soon, obviously depending of everything. But, being there, you can get some experience. So you can at least say you did it, and make some connections. You never know where that person's going to end up. I mean, you have no idea where somebody's going to end up with a job. I mean, there's people that you're like, wow, that person got that job. And it is amazing, but you never know. Like, hey, they were a great worker. There they are, So you just need to stay in touch with people, and I think just making the most of those relationships, Brian. I think just naturally growing relationships over time is important.
We love to tell a story about the guy, David Abruzzi, who a lot of our students up until this year worked game days with the Miami Dolphins, and their jobs were finished at halftime. And they could go home, they could eat the crappy lunch that they were given, but I guess you can't say it was crappy because it was free. or they could do something else. And David always wanted to get into media relations, and he somehow got up to the press box after he was done doing his game day stuff and started working with them, started asking what he could do. They saw he had an ID. They saw he had a game day shirt. Long story short, he meets all the visiting teams' PR people, and he gets a job with the New England Patriots, right out of that. Okay, so some people say that's good enough, but not for him. He lasts with the Patriots a year because the Dallas Cowboys hired him after that, and he's been with the Cowboys as a media relations assistant ever since, only because he went and looked for more. He wasn't satisfied with just working, from the 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. when everyone else came in until halftime. Very interesting story.
That's interesting too. We had one of our guys from my program actually went down and stalked the Titans people until they let him in for he was doing a bunch of random stuff at Titans games, and he got on with the media relations guy. Now he works for the Vikings. Craig Peters doing an awesome job for them. But he was the same way. He just tried to figure a way in. He's like, how do I get into that job? That's what I want to do. Let me get into PR. Let me get into PR. Let me try to do that. Let me try to do this. Let me see who will let me in. And that's a good point too. I just lost my train of thought on that one. Crap. But yeah, be willing to do kind of anything, like you said, like hang around at an event, figure out what's next. I think some of that stuff you find out, you learn a lot about people and the beyond hours of stuff. When we tore stuff down after basketball games, run on basketball operations, and tear it down and set up a concert, you learn a lot about people when you're kind of behind the scenes too. But be willing to learn, and just be willing to do a lot of different things. Like that's what he did. I mean, just willing to step outside of his, not outside of his comfort zone, but just hang out because he got the opportunity. So that's the same thing happened at NCAA Regional. When I worked at NCAA Regional, I talked to everybody. When they're around, people are walking around, schools are walking around. You never know who you're going to meet or who's going to be there. So I just think you need to, and I'm an extrovert. So if you couldn't tell by now, but you just,
no.
But you just have to, find a way to meet those people, and it happens, and most of it happens naturally if you're in those places. But and that's the other thing I want to think. Customer service was something I learned from Belmont people more than anywhere. It probably helped me in sales too. Being kind to people no matter what other people's thoughts were of them. So someone can have an opinion of somebody, but you get to make your own opinion of someone. Okay? So like our coaches, we had coaching staffs that hated other coaching staffs. Women's basketball or baseball at times would, talk poorly of the other team, and I would be in charge of handling the other team, coming in, all these things. And our senior women's administrator, Betty Wiseman, and Steve Barrett, who I mentioned earlier, no matter what, treat people nice. That's what we're known for here at Belmont. We take care of everybody. Referees, the away teams, no matter what, we want to make them feel welcome at Belmont. And we did that. No matter what coaches said or coaches that didn't get along with other coaches in the league, we did the greatest job. And that kind of taught me, no matter what people say of somebody, make your own opinion of them, and have your own thoughts on them. I think that's the one thing I could say too. And treat people with kindness. I think kindness actually goes a long ways. A lot of people are very quick these days to be rude. And I think kindness is pretty important. I think they taught me that because we had Mercer's head basketball coach is a handful. He was the old head coach. He is a handful. And I just treat him with kindness. And we won on a last second shot, so it was really hard for him to accept my kindness at the end of the night. But things like that happen. So, but you still have to be nice to people. Make sure they leave properly, take care of them, make sure they're good to go. Same with referees. And I still remember referees. There's still referees in our games. I shoot the crap with a couple of them that I remember from Belmont days when they come down here to FAU. So you never know where you're going to run into these guys again, or who's going to rehire you or remember you. So just remember, kindness and be nice to people. I think it goes a long way.
One more, and we'll let you get back to your beautiful young daughter there. Last question.
She's asleep, but yeah, here we go.
Michael, yeah. Anybody else? No.
Is NCAA football coming back?
Huh?
So is NCAA football coming back?
No decision yet.
No decision.
We got time. It's gonna be interesting. We've got to navigate our space from groups of 10 to whatever capacity we decide, and that's going to have to gradually happen. I mean, it'd be really hard to rip Band-Aids. We'd have to rip Band-Aids pretty quick at times. But I mean, it's not out of the picture. I mean, if they can turn over some vaccines pretty quick, I know there's some third stage stuff. Nothing's out. Nothing's out with the way the NCAA operate, or not the NCAA, but I would say right now the NCAA is kind of taking a step back and giving it to your local and health state officials. And so, like for us, like we're still preparing like September 12th is going on. You know what I mean? Until someone tells us it's not. So I mean, you have to, because I mean you don't know what that looks like. And if it's October 3rd instead of September 12th, let's be it. You know, let's go. I am very hopeful. I'm an optimistic person. I wouldn't tell you anybody else. I really hope it is, and I really think there's a lot of people in this country that want it. And how we can do it is the biggest thing, safely. It's going to be safely more than anything, and if we can't get to safely, it's going to be really hard. Just the liability, you just don't want that. And I think you want your student athletes to have the best experience and not just go through something. So I don't know, though. You know, it's the powers that be, and it's probably even above. You know, presidents are going to be talking to people, and there's going to be some big decisions made. But I would say we will probably go with the SEC and Big 12 or ACC. The ACC pushed back to September 1 to give themselves a little break. So they haven't cut off non-conference games yet. So that's kind of rewarding. For us, it's just the scheduling, you know, how it is right now. So I don't know what that looks like either. So, but we're going to be open. We're going to be open to a lot of things. We want to stay in the game as long as we can and see what we can do to help our student athletes. And it's tough when some of those conferences go down so early because you don't just, I think the easier thing to do is cancel and just say we're canceling and we'll figure it out in January. But I think the hardest thing in this whole thing is starting back up. We killed it pretty easily. It's easy to kill stuff. Like, hey, canceling, that's easy. Nobody plays. But like finding a way to get somebody back out there is important to me. I think it's good for all of us. Education needs to happen. I think, you know, obviously education at our level, we're at an age we can mature enough to handle it on virtual. But I think the in-person stuff goes a long ways. And also athletics goes a long ways. In person and with interactions, it carries a lot of weight than being separate from each other. So I'm very hopeful, Phil, that we play. I don't want to tell you one way or another. So
I was hoping for a definitive yes.
I don't think you're getting a lot of definitive yeses right now, brother. So,
yeah.
But no, I love being on here, guys. I love helping out. If I can help any of you at all, feel free to email me. I'm sure Dr. Riordan's got my email. I'm on the website as well. Feel free to reach out anytime. Be happy to connect with any of you guys. And if there's obviously stuff on campus, try to work with our guys. We're right here. Get yourself some great experience. And if you want to work in the pro game, I know Dr. Riordan has great connections. And, you know, if you're from a different area and you want to try to get some, you know, jobs in a certain area, let us know. You know, I mean, we can try to help as much as we can. I think, like he said, getting people jobs is important, but obviously you want to make sure you're a good person too before we, you know, recommend you for a job. That's the biggest thing. Because once you recommend a bunch of bad people, it doesn't help you either. So you want to make sure you recommend good people that do the job and represent you in a good way. So thank you.
We've certainly been through that. Thank you so much.